Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome everyone to the 2022 Ryman Prize presentation. My name's Richard Umbers and I'm the Group CEO of Ryman Healthcare. I'm absolutely thrilled to be joining you today for this very special presentation. I'd like to start by welcoming the Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Jacinda Ardern. Wonderful to have you here. I would also like to acknowledge Associate Health Minister Ayesha Viral. Thanks to both of you for taking the time out of your busy day to be with us here today. Welcome also to our local MP, Greg O'Connor, Rose Wall, representing the Aged Care Commissioner, John Collins from the Retirement Villages Association, and representatives from Alzheimer's New Zealand and Dementia Wellington. Great to see you all here today. I'm going to start by setting out a bit of the background to the Ryman Prize and the inspirational people who have won it over the years. I'll then invite the Prime Minister of New Zealand, the Right Honourable Jacinda Ardern, to come forward to say a few words before announcing this year's Ryman Prize winner. The idea of the prize dates back to 2013, when we were approached by one of our investors who wanted to find a way to do more to address the health issues affecting older people. Our intention was to create a prize which attracted entries from the best and brightest thinkers from around the globe. Diseases of old age, such as Alzheimer's, they have no borders. They're everybody's problem. So we made it an international prize. The Ryman Prize was launched by Sir John Key, our then Prime Minister, in 2014. It's a $250,000 cash award for what, in the jury's opinion, is the world's best development, advance or achievement that enhances quality of life for older people. It's the most substantial prize of its kind anywhere in the world and could just be the spark that ignites a blockbuster idea. I don't suppose I need to remind anyone, growing old can sometimes be tough. Even more so during the era of COVID. Restrictions on personal contact and ability to go out. It can disproportionately affect people in negative ways for older people. The havoc we have seen in countries like Britain, Spain, Italy and the United States since 2020 have shown us just how devastating the impact on the older generation can be. And at the same time, we're witnessing one of the greatest demographic shifts in history as the baby boomers and Gen Xers age. They set out to change the world, and that's exactly what they did. It's also what they're still doing, and I believe they will continue to shape the world for many years to come. Out of interest, it has taken 200,000 years for the population of humans who are aged over 80 to reach 143 million. But it will take us only 30 years for that number to triple to 426 million. That means that in the Western world, 1/4 of the population, 1 in 4, will be over retirement age by 2050. We've all known people whose lives have been impacted by diseases such as diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Some of our audience today will be living with these issues. Conventional wisdom has it that a lot of the diseases of old age are seen as inevitable, but perhaps they're not. We cannot hold back the aging process, but perhaps we can make the journey a little more comfortable. We're living longer, so the chronic diseases of aging have a bigger impact than ever before. We can do more to enhance the quality of life for older people, and that's what our prize founder had in mind. A prize founded in New Zealand to reflect the tremendous work that is already going on here. A prize to encourage the next generation of problem solvers. In 2014, we assembled an international jury, an expert team of leaders working in the field of health for older people. The jury consists of Professor Erwin Nieher from the Max Planck Institute at the University of Göttingen in Germany. Erwin won a Nobel Prize in 1991 for his cell research. Professor Sarah Harper, who is Professor of Gerontology at the Oxford Institute of Aging in the United Kingdom. Professor Brian Draper, Conjoint Professor of Psychiatry at the University of New South Wales in Sydney. Dr. Naoko Maramutsa, a specialist in ageing at the University of Illinois in Chicago. And last but not least, two New Zealanders, Professor Tim Wilkinson and Dr. David Kerr. Professor Wilkinson is an award-winning University of Otago academic, researcher, and a specialist in geriatric medicine. Dr. Kerr was made a Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit in 2020 for his services to health and business. He was chair of Ryman Healthcare for 26 years and has a distinguished career in medicine. The Ryman Prize turns 8 this year, and I'd like to thank our jurors who do so much to support this prize. We have had hundreds of entries since we started, and the competition has inspired fresh thinking in so many. In 2015, the first Ryman Prize went to Australian Gabi Hollows. Gabi, with her late husband Fred Hollows, co-founded the Hollows Foundation, which has been responsible for restoring sight in millions of older people in the developing world. This year, we are delighted to be supporting the Hollows Foundation as our charity partner. The second winner was Professor Henry Brodaty, who was awarded the prize for his more than 30 years' work in Alzheimer's research in Australia. The 2017 prize went to Professor Peter St George-Hyslop. Peter is a geneticist who leads teams of research at Cambridge University in the UK and the University of Toronto in Canada. Peter's 30 years of research work has focused on discovering the key genes and proteins that cause cells to degenerate in diseases such as early onset Alzheimer's. The 2018 prize was awarded to Professor Takanori Shibata, who was recognized for his pioneering work into robotics and artificial intelligence. In 2019, the prize went to neurosurgeon Dr. Michael Fehlings, a pioneer in the treatment, research and care of older people. The 2020 prize went to Professor Mia Kivapelto. Mia is from Finland and is a world-leading researcher into the causes and treatment of cognitive disease. In 2021, our deserving winner was Professor Kenneth Rockwood. Ken is a leading geriatrician, researcher, academic, and anti-ageism campaigner based in Nova Scotia in Canada. The award recognised his more than 30 years of research, collaboration and practical clinical work for older adults living with frailty and dementia. And we're about to learn who is going to join Ken, Mia, Michael, Gabi, Henry, Peter and Takanori's exclusive club of winners. I'll now invite our Prime Minister to come forward to say a few words and to put us out of our suspense and reveal the winner of the 2022 Ryman Prize.
Kia ora everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to come and join you for a short while this afternoon. Richard, thank you for the welcome, the introduction to this prestigious award and the opportunity to share some time with you today. I also welcome your New Zealand Chief Executive, the Chair of Alzheimer's New Zealand, Claire Hind, as well, and also my colleagues who are here. We've got Greg O'Connor, your local MP, sitting in the front, who I'm sure you'll already be well familiar with Greg and the excellent work he does across the community, and Dr. Aisha Verrill, the Minister for Seniors, but also our Minister for COVID-19 response as well. I can tell you Dr. Verrill is in the title, a doctor by training, and I can't think of a better person to have in the role as Minister for Seniors. She's an exceptional advocate, and whenever we're discussing issues around the Cabinet table, we'll often bring the perspective of our seniors to all our decision making. So, Dr. Verrill, thank you for the role that you play in government. I've really enjoyed being a part of these awards over the last few years, and you can see the occasions when I've had the opportunity as the different photos were flashing up. I thought, gosh, didn't I look young in 2018? For the reason I've enjoyed being a part of these awards is twofold: the opportunity to meet exceptional people who have dedicated their lives and their life's work to essentially what I would describe as positive ageing and greater independence for older people and older New Zealanders. But the other reason I've enjoyed it is because it's been a chance for me to see what amazing developments are occurring in the field of research and innovation to support New Zealanders as we get older. And the reason that that's so important has been brought home to me on a number of occasions, but as Richard said in his comments, and as my parents continually tell me, it's hard ageing. We want to make it easier. We want to make sure that that process of ageing and our older people are valued, are supported. And through COVID-19, we learnt some of the things that we cannot take for granted: the importance of inclusion, the importance that people are able to stay connected, what we need to do to overcome sense of loneliness, and how do we make sure that the value of that years of experience and wisdom is not lost to us. So those are some of the important lessons that I've observed and that I've learned, and one of the reasons why I value this prize so much for what it teaches us as well. Now, there are things that we need to keep doing as a government to make sure that we are learning as we have part of a growing part of the world's population ageing. Things like our Dementia Action Plan, putting in place our Aged Care Commissioner, the Better Later Life strategy that we've been working on, and making sure that we value the people that work with you. There are a few of the wonderful aged care workers that work in New Zealand standing alongside the wall, and I just wanted to give them a wave. Do you know, every time I've come to enjoy this awards ceremony, what I've had impressed upon me by those I've had the chance to have a conversation with is how much you want to see recognised the care and work of our aged care workers. That demonstrates to me a level of selflessness that the focus is on those workers, but it also demonstrates how important you are in looking after our most valuable people, our older people. And so I just wanted to say thank you to you and also acknowledge that it was last week, I believe, that we announced the extra $200 million towards ensuring the pay of workers in our aged care facilities meets the pay that you see in other parts of our health system, so we don't lose good people. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. But my job is today to have the privilege of announcing this year's winner of the Ryman Prize. And it is my great pleasure to announce that the winner for 2022 is Professor Bhuminder Sakdev. Bhuminder is actually sitting in the front row, so I feel like it was actually a secret that wasn't so well hidden, but it is such a pleasure to be able to have you here today. What an outstanding academic and clinician we've been told that you are. Your work has had a profound impact around the world. Your colleagues describe you as a superstar who has the ability to do work of 3 people at once and still be ahead of the curve to find where research should go next. Your earlier work focused on understand and treating drug-induced movement disorders which differently affect older people. Your most important contributions have been in the field of cognitive disorders with a major focus on vascular dementia. You've refined the concept of vascular cognitive disorders, developed new research criteria, identified novel risk factors, and established imaging and other biomarkers. You've spearheaded the development of 3 international consortia on the epidemiology of cognitive impairment with dementia, with contributions from all continents. And through this work, you've developed a truly international understanding on the scale of cognitive disorders with significant representation from low and middle income countries. A major objective has been to reduce the inequity in dementia research internationally and identify unique risk and protective factors for dementia in diverse populations so that interventions can be more population specific. Your other major achievement has been in the study of people aged over 100 to examine the determinants of exceptional longevity as a model of successful ageing. And perhaps you might be able to share some of the things that you've learnt along the way with all of us. It has again made this an international cooperative endeavour by bringing together 17 studies from around the world. It is truly a privilege to grant this award to you, Professor, and to have the opportunity to hear from you. Without a doubt, you've made an enormous contribution to the health and care of older people, and you thoroughly deserve our gratitude. Please. This is like an Olympic athlete. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we'll pause for a quick photo. Thank you. I'm sure they're going to ask you to speak, please.
Should I?
Yes, please, please.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Prime Minister, Minister Verrill, Mr. O'Connor, Mr. Umbers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great honor to be the 8th recipient of the Ryman Prize. And the honor is doubled by the fact that it's being awarded by Prime Minister Ardern, whom my wife and I greatly admire, and in fact, she's a role model for our 2 daughters. My profuse thanks to the Ryman Foundation for making this award possible. And in fact, the Ryman Prize is a relatively young prize, but it has already achieved a certain prestige in the international circle. And I think its main features are that it's apolitical, it does not serve to aggrandize a donor, and it also brings a certain focus on healthy aging and dementia. It is also being judged by your peers, which, as you saw from the jury, which is often the hardest test to pass. But today I'm going to focus on healthy aging and dementia, because that, I think, is a major demographic change that we are seeing in all societies all around the world. We are all aging, and societies are aging. And in fact, Richard did mention some of the statistics. We know that there are about 1 billion people around the world now over the age of 60, and that figure will become 2 billion by the middle of the century. In fact, in many populations, for example, if you look at Japan, about 30% of the population is over the age of 60. And in fact, Australia and New Zealand wouldn't be far behind if we were not for the young migration we've had over the last 3 decades or so. So this is going to be a major challenge. And this aging of the population not only poses social and economic challenges, there are a number of health challenges. And in fact, my focus is on health challenges. And I think the thing I want to emphasize is that it's not just increase in lifespan. Of course, we all want to live long lives. But what we are really interested in is the health span, because we want to live not only long lives, but long, healthy lives. And if you actually look at people's lives in general, if you look at older people, on the average, around the world, older people spend about, say, 9 to 12 years. It's about 9 years for men and 12 years for women with disease and disability towards the later stage of their lives. So we call this the gap between health span and lifespan. So what we want to do is actually try to reduce this gap so that if your lifespan is this much, the health span is also this much or just a little less. And in fact, that's the challenge for researchers. And some of the work that we're trying to do is try to bridge that gap, to reduce that gap so that your health span is longer, not just your lifespan. So because I'm a neuropsychiatrist by training, my focus has been on brain health mostly, although we do look at other aspects of health. So I'll take you through, maybe briefly, through my journey to what I'm doing at present. In fact, I grew up in North India, in a small town in the hills, in the foothills of the Himalayas called Solan, which is not very far from Shimla. I don't know whether many of you are familiar with Indian history, but this was the summer capital of the British Raj before independence. So I went to a local school run by Catholic missionaries there, and then I went to Delhi for my medical training, and I did about 3 years of psychiatry training. And then I got restless for travel, and I applied to a lot of jobs around the world. And in fact, Auckland Board Hospital was the first hospital to offer me a job, and I took it. So I find myself in February 1983 in Papakura at the King Seat Hospital. It was a cultural shock, I must say. But it was supposed to be a brief visit to New Zealand, a brief stint in New Zealand, but it ended up being 4 years. And in that 4 years, I actually became a naturalized Kiwi. And I still actually carry the New Zealand passport. It's the only passport I have, actually. So I'm a proud Kiwi in that sense. But when I came to New Zealand, I was struck by the cultural difference. And in particular, I got very interested in Maori culture. And I actually started studying some aspects of Maori culture. And I studied two ethno-psychological concepts, two concepts within Maori culture that are very important for psychology and psychiatry. You're all familiar with those terms, I guess, or those concepts. And they are mana tapu noa as a concept and whakama as another concept. And I wrote some papers on those two concepts, and also looked at a Maori elder working in a psychiatric hospital with young patients. This work was done in Waikari Hospital in Dunedin. I understand that neither King Seat Hospital nor Waikari Hospital are functioning as psychiatric hospitals anymore, which is, of course, the change we've seen over 30 years. In fact, I presented all this work as my PhD. So my PhD is on Maori ethnopsychiatry. But I was actually more interested in the brain and mind. In fact, when I chose to go into psychiatry because I was impressed by mental phenomena and the source of these mental phenomena, and looking at brain and mind relationship. And that's why I moved to neuropsychiatry subsequently, and I accepted a job at the Neuropsychiatric Institute in Sydney in 1987, and I've been there ever since. And as was mentioned earlier by the Prime Minister, I worked on movement disorders earlier on. I did a number of other things, but my major interest for the last 25 years has been brain aging and dementia. And we've asked a number of questions in this field. The first question is, can we diagnose decline in memory and other cognitive abilities early in people? And this is before they develop dementia. So we want to actually identify that early so that we can intervene, do something early before dementia develops. That's the first question. The second question is, what factors increase or decrease your likelihood of developing dementia? So risk and protective factors. Because if we know that, we will be able to do something about possible prevention of dementia. And the third question is, are these factors the same around the world? Or do different populations have specific factors that need to be focused on? And then finally, as a consequence, as a corollary to this, can we do something in terms of intervention? So we've been doing some trials looking at lifestyle factors, but also drugs, to see whether we can actually either prevent the onset of dementia, or if not prevent, delay the onset of dementia. Because one of the keys is that we know that dementia in later life doubles, the prevalence of dementia doubles every 5 years. So the risk doubles. At 65, it's a 1.5%, so at 70 it'll be twice that, and then at 55 it'll be twice that again. So if you could actually push back the development of dementia by 5 years, you could actually halve the risk of dementia. And we've shown that with certain interventions, you can actually push it back by a year or two. And even 2 years would actually have a significant impact, say a 20% impact potentially on the prevalence of dementia. So that's really the area of work that we've been focusing on the most. And to answer these questions, so we set up a number of studies, which are longitudinal studies. So what we do is recruit people from the community. These are usually healthy people to start off with, and then we follow them over several years. And we've been doing 4 studies. We started with stroke patients to see who develops vascular dementia after stroke. And then we went on to do the Sydney Memory and Aging Study, which is a study of older people, healthy older people in the community, a little over 1,000 people that we've been following up for over 15 years. And then the third study we did was looking at older twins to look at the genetic versus environmental factors in terms of aging as well as dementia. And then the fourth study was what was mentioned earlier, the centenarian study, Sydney Centenarian Study, where we've recruited over 450 people over the age of 95 years. And of course, the longevity at that age is not very long, so we don't follow them for several years, but just for 2 or 3 years. And a huge amount of data are collected. We repeatedly test them, do MRI scans, genetic data, and we use that information to develop trials for intervention. And that's really what the main focus has been over this time. And also, it was mentioned that my focus is on vascular dementia. Now, there are many causes of dementia. We use dementia as an umbrella term. And Alzheimer's disease is possibly the most common cause of dementia. But then vascular change in the brain, such as stroke or what we call small vessel disease in the brain, is very common. In fact, we showed for the first time that it is actually often the small vessel disease in the brain, which doesn't present as a stroke, that is more important for the development of vascular dementia. And we've been investigating this small vessel disease and what could be done to actually slow the progression of small vessel disease in the brain. In fact, we established a new center within our center. So in 2012, I helped develop the Center for Healthy Brain Aging at our university. And within that center now, we have a Center for Research Excellence in Vascular Dementia. So we're trying to bring the focus on vascular dementia. And then, of course, the other approach has been to look at centenarians. Now, centenarians are remarkable in that not only have they outlived their peers by often several years, sometimes several decades, but they often also have healthy aging as part of that, that they often push back the onset of disease to a very late age. So even if you find that the centenarians at 100 or 105 are not that well, but often they were very well until they were 95 or 97 or something like that. So they actually may be the models we want to use to try to bridge that gap between health span and lifespan that I was talking about. And if we can discover their secrets. In fact, I was fortunate to interview one of your very remarkable centenarians at this village, Nolene, who's going to be 105 I mean, she's remarkable. She'll be on this Boxing Day, she'll be 105. And she's amazing, absolutely. One of the, I suppose, the most independent centenarian. And we will actually call her a semi-super centenarian when she reaches 105, because when they... So super centenarians are ones who've reached 110. And we don't have so many of them, but Japan actually is the leader. There are so many super centenarians and semi-super centenarians. But what we want to learn from them is the secrets. Now, secrets may be in the genes, but often they are in lifestyle. And we think that, for example, with dementia, we think that about 40% of dementia could possibly be explained by lifestyle factors or modifiable factors. And if we could address that, we could make a significant impact. Now, also, during this work, we realized that dementia is a global problem. In fact, the most rapid increase in dementia around the world is occurring in low and middle-income countries, what we used to call developing countries. And they have far fewer resources and capability to do dementia research. So we're trying to actually deal with that inequity. And we try to bring studies from all over the world together so that we can share data and do joint analysis, look at differences between different populations, and modify our approaches for different populations. So one of the consortia that was mentioned earlier, we call the COSMIC Consortia, which has now 57 studies from 35 countries. It's actually over 180,000 participants overall in these studies. So there's a wealth of data that we're trying to harness to try to understand risk factors. And we're also looking at another consortium, which is for post-stroke dementia. And then, of course, the Centenarian Consortium, Richard mentioned that, to look at centenarians around the world. Now, what I essentially want to do is bring you a few messages. But before I do that, I would like to just tell you a little bit about the center that I helped establish in 2012, which has actually the Center for Healthy Brain Aging. We call it CHIBA, which has about 60 researchers. But alongside the research, we try to take the message to the community and policymakers, because we have to recognize that aging of the population is a challenge, and many bureaucrats and politicians are not that focused on aging and dementia. We are seeing the change, but and especially I think with the baby boomer generation reaching that age, because they're very influential, they're a large cohort and very influential. So we are seeing a change, but we have to do more to try to promote healthy aging. And in fact, this decade is the UN decade of healthy aging. And we have to bring together government, civil society, academia, media, and the private sector to improve the lives of older people. And it's actually very heartening to see that we have such influential people from New Zealand come here today to support this. And so the message is getting out there that this is really a major challenge to society, but also a major opportunity. And I think that's really what we have to recognize, that older people are a big resource that is not being harnessed. And one of the major messages that I want to give out is against ageism. I know one of the previous winners also is an anti-ageism campaigner, because ageism is everywhere. In fact, a recent survey showed that 1 in 2 people are ageist. And in fact, unfortunately, many older people are also ageist, and also ageist against themselves, that they feel that they are too old to do this or that or the other. And that, in fact, we know that self-ageism is a problem, because actually people who are self-ageist live shorter lives. It actually makes a difference about 5 years, whether you are self-ageist or not self-ageist, really, how long you live. So societies have made great strides in combating sexism, racism, but ageism has been relatively neglected, and it can be combated. Policies and laws, educational activities, and intergenerational interventions. And I think there's one very important program where we have been involved in is bringing younger people, for example, to retirement villages. So say school kids to retirement villages, or keep increasing the contact between generations, which sometimes is missing for older people. And that really is a significant narrative that needs to be propagated. The second thing, of course, is to mount a major community campaign for healthy aging. And that involves lifestyle. And in lifestyle, actually, there are these pillars: good nutrition, physical exercise, mental stimulation or cognitive activity, and social integration, social activity. So there's 4 keys, I think, to that lifestyle issue. And we can do something about this in the general population to improve this in the general population. And we need to make, certainly, media campaigns involve government, but policy changes need to be made as well to actually help improve this. And also, we have to remember that the road to healthy aging starts early in life with good education. And I think one of the things that could be done in many countries is to actually bring the people who are left behind in education forward. Actually, that's actually will pay a major dividend in many different fields in society, but also with aging, really. That we know that good education sets you up for life, and also actually is a major protective factor against dementia and poor aging. And thirdly, of course, in terms of dementia itself, really, early diagnosis and good care. We're not going to cure dementia in a hurry. So I think we need to actually provide good care for people with dementia as well. And I think that's really one thing that we're trying to push forward, is a campaign to make dementia care a human right. So I hope the community leaders and policymakers are listening to these messages and will act on these messages, because it is in and our interest, in the interest of our society, that we do this. So I would like to end by saying that I humbly accept this prize on behalf of numerous colleagues and students and friends who have helped me along this journey. Foremost, I thank my beautiful wife of 36 years, Jagdeep, who's sitting here in the audience, who has been a constant support and inspiration for all these years. She, like so many women, including your Prime Minister, is a superwoman, I think. Yeah. Yeah. And I'd also like to thank my two daughters and their partners, actually, for their love and care. Those daughters are Sonal and Nupur, who live in Sydney. I want to thank the jury and the organizers of the Ryman Prize. My special thanks also to David King, who's been such a marvelous, generous host during this visit. So, David. And I dedicate the award to the staff and students of the Centre for Healthy Brain Aging at the University of New South Wales and the Neuropsychiatric Institute at the Prince of Wales Hospital. And, of course, to the wonderful participants in our research for many of these studies over several years, without whom none of this research would have been possible. Thank you once again to the Ryman Foundation, Richard, and to Prime Minister Ardern. And thank you to you all, actually, for being here today and your support of healthy aging and the message of positive aging that you carried into the community. Ngā mihi nui. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Perminder. And I just feel that I've learned so much just in the last few minutes listening to you speak, and for that tremendous insight into the work that you carry on. Most fascinating. So once again, all of us send our warmest congratulations. Congratulations to you and your wife, Jagdeep, who is obviously with you here today. Our thanks to the Prime Minister of New Zealand, to our jury, and to everybody who entered. And finally, a huge thank you to Albie. Where's Albie? Albie? And the team here at Malvina Major for your wonderful hospitality, and to all our residents, both those that are here today in this room, but also throughout the village, for sharing their beautiful home with us all here today. We really appreciate that, and for your warm welcome. So I wish you a good afternoon. Me te wā. Thank you.